Hi.
Hi.
It's nice having you here in Belgrade. Can you tell us a little bit more about how did you come? What is the project that you're working in Belgrade? You can start introducing yourself a little bit shortly.
Sure. I'm Amble Skuse. I'm a composer and sound artist. I do a little bit of performance art stuff as well. And the project that I've been doing in Belgrade is a mapping project. So I've been making a sound walk. And the idea is that I've explored the city in my wheelchair. And it's like the city streets kind of become a musical score. So every bit of cobble, every paving slab, the size of the paving slabs go clack, clack, clack. And if it's smaller, it goes clack, 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 clack. So the city streets kind of become a score for the wheelchair, and it responds to the texture of the streets. And then also I'm trying to layer it in with like a voiceover which explains things that are happening to me, and the way that I might look at a street would be different from how you look at it, because I have to look at where the curbs are, how high the curbs are, where the bollards are, when I can get off the curb, when I can get on the curb, where the holes are. So I sort of have to navigate the city slightly differently. So I've tried to put that in the narration as well. So I'll make a little sound walk, and there'll be tracks that will take you from one place to another, and we'll go around in a little circle, and you'll hear what the city sounds like to me, but you'll also hear my thoughts about navigating the city at the same time.
And you were planning to make a map and mark these places where you were recording.
Yeah.
And then people can go through the QR code.
Yes. Yeah. So you just click the QR code, it'll take you to the website, and you just listen to the tracks as you go around, and you can take part in it.
We can put that on our website, and then we can link this to this interview so people can always access it.
Excellent. I haven't finished it yet, so don't do it yet.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, it will be there, so
yeah.
So it's kind of like an ongoing exhibition.
Yeah, that's the idea really. And like one of the things that's nice about it is like it was something you could do during lockdown, that actually you don't need to be in a gallery, you don't need to go to a theatre. It's still something like an artwork you can take part in, but you can do it on your own, and it's just walking.
Yeah.
If you can walk that far, which, you know, some people can't, but you just put your headphones on, you take your phone, and then you just go for a walk and experience an artwork.
Yeah. Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And what are the themes that are usually interest you in your works?
I work a lot with like feminism and disability theory in my work, and that's mainly because I think my work's motivated by trying to understand a problem. So if something's really bugging me and I can't figure out why I'm having like such an emotional reaction to things, I sort of start to explore it and unpick it and make work about it, so that and like sometimes I interview other people and ask them questions, and through the process of doing that I start to understand the thing. So I think that's probably why I work with like feminism and with disability, because those are the two big things which kind of keep impacting me, is either being treated differently because I'm a woman, or encountering problems because I'm a wheelchair user or an energy deficient. So then I have to sort of try and understand, okay, well, what's happening, and, you know, where are the problems, what are the barriers, what am I experiencing, how could this be different, how do other people deal with it? And then all of those questions kind of come out in my work, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of time. That's my case also.
Yeah,
I think artists usually approach that way a lot of the times.
Yeah.
It's quite natural. And can you tell me, like, what is the approach for your developing your art career? I mean, you can say, like how you seek opportunities, and like all these things can be like really useful. Like if we have like different insights, how in different countries people have like different experiences.
Yeah. I think I started off, I knew I wanted to do composing, but I didn't really know where I fit, whether I was like a theatre composer or a classical composer or an electronic composer, or a workshop leader. And so I spent a couple of years trying to do a bit of everything. I did a film project, I did a theatre project, I did soundscapes, I did writing for classical ensemble, and I just tried everything. And I think there's a balance of like stuff that you enjoy, stuff that you're good at, and stuff that you can earn money doing. And I think out of all of those projects you get a feel for what people respond to. Like some of those things it sort of didn't really work, or you enjoyed it but you can't see a way to make a living from it, or you know, it didn't really land properly, like it didn't really fit with the context. And I think through trying a lot of things, you start to realise what works for you and what works, like where you might have an audience. And also you have to work out how you want to get paid. So like some people tour a lot with a band. I've made one album as part of a band, but the problem we have is that I can't play a gig every night. So every night we do a gig has to pay for 2 days of accommodation and travel instead of one. So it's not a practical money making way for me to work, because you have to do a gig every night to pay for your hotel, but if you're spending 2 nights in a hotel for every gig that you do, it's not worth doing it. So I had to find a way that I could make an income without having to tour, and you have to think about those things, like what is a realistic income stream for me. And luckily in the UK we have funding bodies like Creative Scotland and Arts Council, and they've been kind of supportive of more experimental stuff. And I started doing a PhD about 5 years ago, mainly because I was always chasing an income. Because I'm ill so much of the time, I can't work full time, I can work a couple of hours a day, and I just couldn't make enough money without making myself ill. So I was teaching as well, but teaching was making me really tired. I kept catching colds from the kids, which then would knock me out for 2 weeks, and I couldn't work. And it was like this constant struggle. And I thought a funded PhD would actually enable me to breathe for a few years, because I'd have a little bit of money coming in. It's not a lot of money, but it's a little bit of money every 3 months that would just keep my head above water. So I applied for a funded PhD and I got it, which is, and then that, I'm kind of rambling a bit, but that sort of then opened me up to do more experimental stuff. Because as a PhD it has to be experimental. But in terms of like getting work and making things happen, I think at the start it was a scattergun approach. It was like, just apply to everything that's got money attached to it and see what you get. And then from there you start to figure out what you're good at. You start to be able to target who you should apply to. So you might see a call out and you just think, that's just not me, I would never get that. Whereas at the beginning I would apply for it and I wouldn't get it. So I think start out by applying for everything, and the things that work are right for you, and the things that don't, just let them drop. Like there's a festival in Scotland, I must have applied for it for like 4 years in a row and I never got a place. And eventually I just thought, I'm not what they're looking for, and that's okay. But I think after a while you start to get a sense of, this is the sort of thing that I might have a chance with, and that is a thing that I probably won't get selected for. So you start to map out, like, what's going to respond to you just through experience. But really you just have to keep throwing yourself at it. Just apply for everything, and don't even think about the no's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just apply for it, send it, forget about it. And if it comes back, brilliant. But don't think about the ones that don't come back. Don't ever think, oh, why didn't I get that? Wasn't I good enough? What didn't happen? Oh, I'm really devastated. Like, don't, just think of the application process as an opportunity to focus your mind on a project, to create something, to think through who you are as an artist and how to communicate that, and then send it. And some of it will come back and some of it won't, but that's okay. That's completely normal. But I think at the beginning people send things off and they get no, and it's just soul destroying and it's confidence destroying. But I think the only way is just to keep going. And somebody said to me once, the difference between a successful artist or a successful musician and an unsuccessful one is the successful one kept going. Because the people who give up, give up. So there is that, you have to have that balance of, where am I going to get my money from, which is why a lot of people teach, because it's a little bit of steady income. But also you just have to keep going. You have to keep asking, keep coming up with things, keep finding people who are going to say yes to you. And after a while you find your clan, you find your family, and they introduce you to other people who introduce you to other people. Go, oh, this is really cool, you should meet so-and-so. And then that person says, oh, you should apply for this. So it's a case of finding out what you're good at, finding out what kind of people are going to respond to you, and then following that path. And sometimes it might not be what you set out to do, but the world sort of opens a channel for you. But you have to keep going.
Yeah, this is a really good point.
Yeah.
And what other challenges would you like to address about engaging in an art world?
I think that is the biggest thing, is getting the rejections.
Yes.
It's just no. And like, you put your heart and soul into your application. It can take you months to form the partnerships, like you were saying earlier. You know, all this communication and negotiation and coming up with projects and working out budgets. And then it all falls through and you've done all that work for nothing. And it's just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Pick yourself up.
Yeah, it feels like the work is not recognized.
Yeah, and all that work's been done for free. Like, you've put all that effort in and nothing came back.
Yeah.
But I think what you have to remember is that you learnt from that, and you met people, and you had processes, and you thought, and you created an idea, and you communicated with people, and you understood what they needed, and that's all stuff that will benefit you in the future. But it is hard, if you're not getting paid for what you do, to keep going, you know, and to not give up, and to not become jaded, and not, you know, not lose faith.
And for example, in your opinion, what would be the role of the artist in society?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it?
I mean, it's kind of leading from this conversation. I think like it's connected to what we were talking.
Yeah, I think for me, I have a really clear definition, which I know a lot of people don't share, and that's okay. But for me, art is making something which articulates something valuable about culture, and that can be our, you know, financial culture, capitalism, society, disability, feminism, anything, you know, postmodernism, environmentalism. But it's articulating something that is relevant to our current position in a way that connects another human. So I'm actually saying something to you, and it resonates with you in some way as the audience. And it's not going to resonate with everybody, because we all feel different things and see different things and read things differently. But for me, it's about articulating something that is relevant and current now. It's not a case of like, I did a nice painting, isn't it pretty? To me, that's not art, and I know a lot of people would say it is, but it's what is the thing you made saying, and why is it relevant, and how is it connecting to people? And it's, art is like a conversation. I say something, and you absorb it, react to it, come back. You know, it's about sharing your thoughts and your feelings and your insights with other humans through some kind of creative practice. And I think for me, that's what art is.
It's like about the process more than the end result that can be sellable, or
like, you know, talking about something like Mozart, for example, when Mozart wrote that stuff, it was incredibly culturally relevant. Like, nobody had ever heard anything like that before. Nobody had ever done that before. It was expanding the scales that had been used. It was expanding the repertoire. It was expanding like the amount of people on stage. It was mind-blowing. It was art because it expanded something, and it made people go, okay, the way I think about the world is now different from before I saw this. I think to do Mozart now, you need to make it needs to be relevant. Like, just recreating something from a few centuries ago, for me, isn't art, because it isn't making us think about the cultural context that we live in now. For me, personally, I know this is, like, people are going to hate this, but for me personally, to recreate something that's been done in the past, we have to think, well, how is it relevant now? Why are we saying this? Who are we saying it to? It's not just about kind of going, we made a beautiful thing. And Mozart's work is beautiful, but just playing it now in a concert hall, I wouldn't necessarily say was art.
I mean, it depends on a context. I think it's always about a context. Like, whatever you use, like, and how you use it, it depends on the context of now. I think that's really important.
I think that's it. It's about having a conversation. It's about what are you trying to say, and who are you trying to say it to.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but like you're articulating it during that process. I think that's also like self-discovery and rediscovering like what you're searching for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also sometimes you can start making one thing and end up making something completely different, which is kind of what happened here. I came here to make a sound walk, and I ended up doing a dance piece. Yeah. But that's just, I'm responding to the context, you know. I'm in the context of Belgrade. There are people that do movement around me. There, you know, and it's like, okay, we've got the space, we've got the people. Let's, you know, you have to kind of, respond to where you are.
I think like, and you should have the freedom to do it, like to explore like where it leads you. I think that's part of the art. Like you should have this freedom of the process.
And I think that's something that I really struggle with in the UK, because we have the Arts Council and Creative Scotland, which are both the same thing, but one's for England and Wales and one's for Scotland. But to apply for it, you sort of have to say like what the idea is, who you're going to work with, where you're going to do it, how long it's going to take, what you're going to produce, where you're going to put it on, who your audience is, how you're going to evaluate it. It's actually, if I knew that, I wouldn't have to make the art. And it also feels like you make that, you send in the application, you wait 3 months for an answer. So by the time you start to make the work, the idea is already 6 months old.
Yeah.
And if during that work, you know, if Olya had popped up and gone, oh, I want to do something with the gloves, I would have had to say, oh, we can't do that because we have to make this. Because it's been funded. But if we have a conversation, I can then fill in a form and we might be able to do something in 6 months' time. And in a way, that sense of immediacy, of creativity, of meeting people, of going, okay, let's see what happens. All of that is lost through the funding programme. And that's fine for organisations who want to have a programme and want to invite audiences and have a set, you know, this show will be on from this time, these are finished works. But for people who want to experiment and create and collaborate and see what happens, it's a really kind of restrictive process, because I can't just say to the funder, well, yeah, we didn't make that actually. We decided, we got halfway through and started doing something else. You can't do that.
We like this better.
Or we might come back to that, but actually this thing was really interesting and those people were free at the time, so we just went and did this other thing instead.
I think it's a really a pity because of that. I think that's a reflection of a society in general. And I think it's really hard on art because it doesn't let you follow the like your own process. I think like you have to have like ongoing several things at the same time, and then like, okay, I got funding from this, but then I'm doing parallel my own thing, and then I'll see how and where this goes with, you know. It's kind of like, it's also like with an exhibitions, like you have to apply usually a year before, and then like you're working on something, of course you need time to develop the work, but then sometimes like you start another thing within a year, so like you have to have several things at the same time always going.
And it's kind of like a lot of the models we use in art are models of kind of production or models of business, which is like, we think of a thing, we work out who's going to do it, we work out how much it's going to cost, and then we do it. Whereas I don't necessarily think that art works like that. You know, and I think an artistic creative process can be really responsive and really quick and change direction and meet new people, and that's where the really interesting stuff happens. But because the people who design the structures are from an organisational background, they don't necessarily give you, like, then they don't design things in a way that works for artists necessarily, but also because they're funded by the government, and the government works in the same way. You know, the government wants to know, where did the money go, who's it going to go to, how are they going to spend it, what are we going to get out of it. And you can't get the money from the government unless you can prove to them that you're not just going to arse around and maybe not make anything. But actually in art that's what happens. You have to play around and see what happens. But you know, money coming from a funder, you can't be like, okay, give me $3,000 and something brilliant will happen. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be great. And if it isn't great, we'll learn a lot from it anyway. And I can tell you why it wasn't great and what we would do in the future to change that. But it's just not something that those kind of organisations and structures can accommodate, because they have to be accountable.
Yeah.
You know, they can't have the public going like, well, what did you spend your money on? And them saying, well, we gave it to some artists and they dipped around for a bit and didn't achieve anything. That's politically unsound. They can't do that. And so you end up in this really weird mess where the money coming from up there is saying you need to be accountable, you need to evidence how responsible you are and what you're going to give us. But the people at the bottom are like, we don't know what we're going to do yet. That's okay. You know, and you sort of have this culture clash, which is why like this resident's been really great, because it's like I applied to make a sound walk and then lots of other things happened and I said to you, I don't think I can finish it, and you were like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, because I understand how the process goes. And of course, like you can always finish it because like you were working on it, and since it doesn't require physical space to be represented, we can finish it in a way that like present it on a website, and so it's not like that it's going to be over and now that's it. It's the end of the world.
So I've made sure that I've done all the recordings I need to do here, but I can take that away and carry on working on it. But you just to have, you know, a space to make something and to say, do you know what? I'm just going to park that and do this other thing that's happening right now. That doesn't happen very often. You don't get that opportunity, and it's really refreshing and it's really creative. And like we've had so many conversations, me, Bosca and Arya, about what this could be. It's like it could go here, it could go here, we should try this, we should try that, we should try this, we should try that. And it's just happened really quickly. Whereas I think if we'd had to write all of that down...
Yes. I think that's the whole point of the residency. You get in a new environment, you meet different people in a different context, so it opens up new opportunities. I think that's a really great thing about artists in residency and mobility in general. Like it's just, you get this exposure of these things that you wouldn't normally be exposed to.
Definitely. And that freedom and flexibility to just chuck it all away and do something else. But also... not to have to think through every aspect of a thing before you do it. Yeah. Like with Olya, it was like, I want to try that. Okay, let's try it. Yes. And we learn from the project by doing the project. I think sometimes when you have to write down everything about the project before you even start, the energy goes out of it.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, I think... certainly for me, I'm very kind of activist learner. I learn by doing things, and so having to write everything down in the beginning, it's sort of like, well, you don't really need to make the project. We've thought everything through, and we've thought through every possible aspect, and I've told you what it's going to look like. Then actually making the work is quite dull. Because it's just bricklaying.
Takes the excitement away.
I'm just making a thing I've already planned. As opposed to...
it's kind of like craft. Like, okay, we're going to make a chair, and then you make a chair, and that's it.
Exactly. And it's really hard to say to people, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I've got these 4 really interesting people, and I'm sure by the end of it something will happen.
But I think that's part of the art, like this uncertainty and unpredictability. I think that's what makes it so exciting. And
you just spur off each other, and you have like a million ideas, and some of them work and some of them don't, and some of them sort of work, and then you adjust it to make it better, and you learn from doing that. But if you just have to envisage it, I suppose you can't take as many risks. If you have to give a final outcome... Okay, here's an example with the sound walk. I've made 3 sound walks already. And making the sound walk here, it's like, if I know I have to finish something in 3 weeks, I know what steps I have to take. I have to go through the city, I have to record the sounds of the city, I have to record the voiceover, I have to make some video, I have to spend 3 days mixing it. You know, like I literally know
the steps.
What do I learn from that? Not very much, because I'm just repeating a process I've done before. And all right, I'm making it for a different audience. I'm making it for a Belgrade audience. I'm making it in a different city, so I'm having different challenges than I had before, but I'm still doing the same process. That I'm just repeating a thing that I've done before. Whereas actually, pretty much as soon as I got here, all of that went out the window, because we found out about, you know, how it is for disabled people to live here, and we spoke to Maya and interviewed her and found out about the report on children's homes for disabled people in Serbia, and everything just exploded. It was like, I can't possibly do what I would normally do, because the context is so different. It would just be offensive situate myself as the center of it. So as soon as all of that went out the window, everything else could come in. It was like, actually we don't know now what it's going to be, but it's going to be new, it's going to be exciting, and it's going to have a language, and it's going to have a texture. It's not just going to be something I took off the shelf and built for you, you know. And that's what's really interesting. And I think a lot of time when you apply for funding to do something, you apply for an opportunity and you say, this is what I'm going to do, and then you just do a thing you already know how to do, you don't learn as much. Because you're not trying new things, you're not solving problems, you're not thinking, well, how can I integrate this with that? And you're just repeating something you've already done. So I don't know where I was going with that.
I totally agree with you. I think this is really good points. I think this can be useful, like conversations like this. I think like if more people engage in conversations like this, maybe like in a long run we can change something. Like if people like bring awareness to this, I think it's really useful.
I think one of the things that I would really love to see is like a let's do it fund, or a just try it fund, which is like maybe €1,000, maybe €2,000, and it's like one side of A4, and it's like, who are the people involved? Have they done anything good before? And what's your vague outline of what you're going to explore? And if it sounds interesting, throw €1,000 at it and see what happens. And then at the end of that, they might be able to do a proposal to say, you know, we're going to do a show in this theatre, and this is what it's going to be. But just to have that seed funding, to be like, I just want to get these 4 people in a room and mess around for a bit and see what happens. But we need €500 to pay.
We should start a project like that.
It would be so good.
Crowdfunding campaign, like saying just exactly these words. Like
I used to do community development, and we used to have a fund called Let's Do It, and I think it was £1,500, but it was like for small communities who were like, oh, we'd like to have a barbecue because we've had a lot of new Eastern European migrants and we'd like to welcome them to the community and build bonds in that way. And we'd be like, fine, here's £500, go buy a barbecue, buy some meat, buy some bread, invite everybody. And it was just little bits of money that would make a difference in a really simple way. Or, you know, we all want to go to the seaside, but we need to hire a coach, but it's kids from this disadvantaged village or this disadvantaged town. And we'd be like, here's £200, go to the beach. You know, it'll make a difference. It's a little bit of money. I don't need you to like map every single outcome. I don't need you to talk about evaluation or public benefit. It'll make a difference. Something will happen. Have a bit of money. And I sort of feel like we're really missing that in the arts. A lot of it is very product based. I think that's a huge problem. Like product based, and also like what's going to bring someone else, even if it's another product, like what kind of like not opportunity, but like what benefits would someone have out of it. I think like when you simplify it, it's like oversimplified when you put it like that. I think like in that way, like you're making an artist putting it in a position that he has to make choices, and a lot of times that's hard. Like I think a lot of artists are not willing to go down that road, so they just stay behind and do their art for themselves. But I think it's kind of like separating for no reason. I think there's a couple of things in what you just said, actually. I think there's one thing where if artists know they have to make a final product for an audience, they will play safe. Because it's like, you know, in 3 weeks or in a month or in 6 months, 1,000 people are going to watch me on a stage. So I'm not going to do anything really, really difficult. Because I don't want to look stupid. You know, I want to present something that looks great and professional. And so they stick within their abilities. Whereas if you say to people, you know, there's no showing, no one's going to see this, go crazy. They will push themselves and push themselves and push themselves. And if it breaks, it doesn't matter. If you don't come up with anything, you might have like 12 different small pieces and none of them are brilliant, but one of them gave you a new technique that you can use in the future. But people don't try. Like a really good example is using electronics. There's a lot of artists, like musicians that I know, who are like, I'd really love to learn a bit about electronics, and they just need time to mess about. They just want to spend time with somebody who knows what they're doing, mess about a bit, make mistakes. They don't want to have to do a concert. because they don't know if they're any good at it yet.
Yeah.
And so I think people don't take risks if they know they've got to show something to the public.
Yes.
Because you want your public profile to look professional.
Yeah.
You don't want people coming to a gig and thinking, well, that was a bit crap. Because people don't know it's the first time you've done it.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to kind of take risks and it not matter. And then I can't remember what the other thing was.
I mean, it's so hard because artists are always on a display in a way. So like you always have to find this balance between this dynamic, like how vulnerable you want to show yourself and like how brave you are, like researching and showing so much of yourself. Yes.
It's kind of like, can you stand in front of an audience and go, I tried something I'd never tried before, didn't really work, but this is as far as I've got. Which is sort of what we did last night, right? A load of stuff didn't work.
But I think it's an amazing, because like if you put yourself out there, like there is more chances that you will find out something new, and then like audience will understand.
That's the thing, right? It's like we could have played it safe last night. We could have just made something really simple, but we tried to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And some of it was brilliant, thanks to Olya, and some of it didn't work. But you know, it wasn't like we presented it and said, this is our finished work. It's like we tried some stuff. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. But it's... And also it's like sometimes an audience are interested in that stuff. I think we place too much... too much importance on a finished product, like you said, you know? And it's like, yes, I made a shiny thing. Look at it and say, wow. But actually, people trying stuff and it not working and trying to work out why it didn't work or what they were trying to do or how they could have done it better or how they might get over that in the future, those are all really interesting things. And I don't see why they shouldn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think like usually like we put too much pressure, like but that creates the distance because then people feel like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that because this is something out there. But this is creating a distance between an artist and art world and like everyone else who are in a way like audience. And then like if people understand what's behind it, that would feel like much more reliable and like they can relate to it. I think this would be really important.
I think that's partially why I've really loved my PhD, because it's like I need to figure out how to do this. Here's a presentation showing how I figured out how to do the thing. It's not saying here's a piece of theatre I made that's perfect. It's, you know, here is my response to this problem. Which is a really refreshing way of thinking about things.
Is it a practice-based PhD? I think that makes a lot of difference. Like here we also have practice-based. Mine was practice-based. So I had to produce an exhibition and to write about my exhibition and also referencing to all the things that were influencing. So I think this is a game changer because it's not just something that is out there. It's like really interesting dynamic how your research is going and the feedback that is coming back into your work.
Like here is the political theory or the philosophical theory. Here is the question that I need to look at, and here is my artistic response to that question. And you can see that I've responded in this way and I've used this process because that, you know. And it's just a really lovely way of working. I'm really sad that I have to finish.
When do you have to finish it?
Well, basically all my practical work's finished. So I just have to write it up now. So of course I've just filled my life with more residencies and projects.
And you have like a final presentation or?
No, it's finished. The opera was my finished piece. But I actually have to write, I've kind of written a first draft of all my chapters because my supervisor is really good and she made me write the chapter as I was going along so I wouldn't forget. But now I have to turn all of that into a finished thesis. But the practical work, like nothing I'm doing now is contributing towards my PhD. Like there's a cut-off and she's like, the opera is the last thing you're going to write about. But I do have to like block out a time and just sit down and make the finished product now, make the thesis. So of course I'm filling my time with coming to Belgrade and seeing you.
But it's been amazing.
Sorry, Roberta.
It's been a real pleasure having you. And one last question. Tell us, how did you like your time in Belgrade and the residency?
the residency has been amazing. It is one of the warmest, friendliest, most supported residencies I've ever done.
Thank you so much.
You guys are just awesome. Like, anything I've needed, you're like, yep, we'll do that. I'm like, can I do a sharing? Yep, we'll do that. We'll put it on Instagram. We've shared it with everyone. Here's the space, turn up at this time. We've got the projector. I'm like, wow, okay. You know, like, it just happens. Like, and, you know, going for coffee and chatting about things and learning about Serbia, and you telling me about, you know, your life and your perspective and your practice, and introducing me to other artists. Like, so many places they're like, here's your residency, here's your accommodation, bye. You know? But this has just been like a friendship.
Yes.
It's like,
I feel like we're really connected, and we're sharing so much.
I just feel like I've become part of your friend circle
Yes.
for like 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so amazing. And in terms of Belgrade, like, it's a fascinating place. I would definitely say anybody should come here, because there's so many layers of what's going on. And as a sort of Northern European person, there's so many readings of what's going on here. You know, like, in some ways it's really thriving. There's it's like, social life is incredible. People are out on the street, people are socializing, people are drinking coffee, people are going to the park, people are hanging out with their dogs. It's really vibrant, it's really happening, loads happening. And then, you know, there's also like the destruction and like buildings falling down and bus routes that don't work and pavements with big holes in it. And it's like, how is and you've got the kind of the communist era architecture, but alongside the kind of Viennese architecture. It's like, are we in Europe? Are we in Russia? What's going on? And then you've got the Turkish influence from like hundreds of years of colonization. And it's just like, every time you look at Belgrade, you see it through a different lens. It's different every time. And you can't say, this is Belgrade or this is Serbia, because every time you poke it, it's different. Like, it has this reputation for the, you know, the war and the violence and being the aggressor and all that stuff with the UN and NATO. And then you get here and they're the warmest, friendliest people you've ever met. And it's like, how are those two things happening at the same time? It's like this thing it's everything at the same time. It's just such a crazy place.
You're articulated it so well. This is incredible. Like, now I feel it. I see it in a different light when you put it this way. Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
It's like, how can it possibly be all these things at the same time? But it is. It's completely run down and broken and concrete and horrible, but it's also beautiful, and in the, you know, on the Danube with these incredible hills and Montenegro and these wonderful train journeys through forests and rivers and canyons that are like mind-blowingly beautiful. And it's like, what? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's rich, but it's poor, and it's friendly, but it's frightening, but it isn't. And it's just like, it's different every time you approach it. It's incredible. Incredible place.
So amazing. Thank you so much for this. I think this is not the end. Like, this is just the beginning. We will. I'm looking forward for new adventures, and I hope you will come again.
Definitely. Well, we've already got plans,
yes.
haven't we?
Yes.
We're going to try and continue the journey with the Mimu gloves, with Bosco, with the movement, with you doing live drawing. Like, there's definitely something in us four as dancer, martial artists, visual artists, and sound artists that can go somewhere. Yes. And we've just at the beginning of that.
We just scratched the surface.
Yeah. Yes. So I think we have to get some funding to get us four in a room and do something.
Yes.
And that might be me coming back here, or you coming to Europe, but it will go somewhere.
I'm so looking forward to that.
I know.
Thank you so much for the interview.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And I'll link everything below so people can find more about your work and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.